So with Hashem's loving grace, tonight we learn the fifth Noahide commandment, the prohibition of theft in all aspects. And we said that this is right out of the Ten Commandments. The eighth commandment, the Ten Commandments says you should not steal. It's also the fifth Noahide commandment. And there are many aspects of theft. But the Rambam, he cites three main categories of theft. When the Rambam talks about the Noahide laws, this is in the laws of kings and the chapter 9, Hilchos Malachim, called in the Rambam's compendium of Jewish law that he boiled down from the Gemara. He talks about three areas, particular large areas of where with theft. One is monetary theft. The second is kidnapping, which what we'll call human theft. And the third is commercial theft, such as withholding workers' wages or failure to pay a bill or a debt that's due, or even something borrowing. We'll put on this category somebody that if some borrows something, you borrow a shovel or borrow a potato from a neighbor, it's also got monetary value, even though it's not directly money, but have to give it back. Right now, to say a big hero in the UK is Robin Hood. Robin Hood is not a hero, and according to Noahide laws, because the medieval English hero Robin Hood, he was famous for robbing the rich and giving to the poor. Such behavior is, I'm sorry, it's contrary to the Noahide commandments. We're not supposed to rob for even the best reason. You want to rob to give charity or rob to help a poor person. We don't rob anyone, not the rich, not the poor, not anyone else. So as we'll see in the next week's lesson, a legitimate court of law has the right to take something from one person and give it to another. Private people don't. If someone has a dispute with another person, they don't fight. They don't not fight physically or not fight verbally. They take it to a court of law. And courts of law, this is the entire aim of the Noahide laws, is to maintain a harmonious society, peaceful and harmonious society. And we see everything. If we look at the war between Russia and Ukraine, if they observe the Noahide laws, they say, okay, we've got a property dispute. We have a dispute on these certain lands. We have a dispute in the Crimea. They'd go to a court. They'd go to The Hague. The Hague was a probable court. And Russia would present this case. And Ukraine would present this case. And no people would lose their lives. And no guns would be shot. And no missiles would be fired. And this is the way the Noahide laws work. And this a world that goes according to the Noahide laws is a world of harmony. And that's what we want. Okay, so we don't have Robin Hoods because Robin Hood's not a Noahide. And justified or not, he was nevertheless, according to Noahide commandments, he was a thief. Doesn't matter, justified or not, he was a thief. Okay, so we say, well, it's either amuna or theft. They're mutually exclusive. Because Rebbe Nachman of Breslov explains in Likutei Moharan, the first part, the discourse 23, what we call Torah 23, the theft and dishonest dealings, they're mutually exclusive with emunah. I'll explain to you how. A person with emunah deals fairly with others, and a person with emunah is careful not to touch a cent that doesn't belong to him or her. No thing. He'll always negotiate fairly and within the parameters of Torah law. So why is that? Because the individual with emunah, he believes in Hashem, and he believes that Hashem gave us the Torah, and he believes that his or her income comes from Hashem. So it's an anathema to violate Hashem's law to get income from Hashem. You think that's going to help you get income from Hashem? If you believe that your income comes from Hashem, then who would violate Hashem's law to get income from Hashem? It doesn't work that way. So by transgressing the Almighty's commandments to get more money, it's really counterproductive. It's not only contributing, it won't contribute to better income, but the person is likely to lose what income he has. So the fair negotiating are sages and a tractate, what we call honest negotiations, fair negotiations, are sages in the Gemara, tractate Shabbos. They call that negotiating with Amunah. Negotiating with Amunah means honest negotiations, because when a person negotiates with Amunah, he negotiates according to the parameters of Torah, because he believes in the Torah and he believes that the Torah comes from Hashem. So therefore, by observing the parameters of commercial law, and because it's somebody that thinks they're religious and they got maybe a long beard, a long black coat, or whatever, if you want to know a barometer of a person's emunah, it's how he or she acts with money. They can talk a good game. Oh, yeah, they believe in Hashem and they believe in everything they believe in. But when it comes to money, But if they believe that the money comes from them, that's not believing Hashem. Now, the Gemara also tells us what happens in the heavenly court when a person goes up. Okay, you finish your 120 years in this world, then go up to the heavenly court, and you have to stand trial. You have to bear responsibility for everything you did since the time you came down to the earth till the time you were there, for the time you were a woman was 12 or a man was 13, until the time he leaves the world, punches out. And the first question they said, no, they don't ask if you were religious or not religious. The first question, and this Gemara Tractate Shabbos, page 31, says the first question the heavenly tribunal asks a person, did you negotiate fairly? In other words, did you do honest commerce? And you didn't cheat anyone, no fraud, no extortion, no nothing, no misrepresentation. Did you negotiate fairly? Wow. Some people think it's pretty different. Now, I wonder how many people will be able to answer that question. To be able to answer that question in the affirmative, that did you negotiate fairly, means that you never laid a hand on someone else's money, that you never misrepresented a product, that you never lied. You sell cars, you sell real estate. You never said something about the article that you're selling that wasn't true. And that's negotiating fairly. Now, when a person negotiates fairly, really eats sweet fruits of his labor. And King David says like this. King David says, when a person eats the fruits of his or her labors, they'll always be happy. That's Psalm 128, verse 2. In like manner, our sages in the Mishnah in Tractate Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 4, the first Mishnah, it says, you know who the rich person is? Our sages say the rich person is the person who is satisfied with his or her lot in life. You're satisfied with what Hashem gives you. So you're satisfied with what Hashem gives you. You're not trying to take something that belongs to someone else. And when a person has emunah, and he or she is satisfied what Hashem gives them, they'll never violate the 10th of the 10 commandments, which is you shall not covet. Covet means desiring something that doesn't belong to you. People say, what's the big deal? Can understand why you can't murder, can't commit adultery, can't steal. We always spoke about idolatry. So what to covet? Coveting is a part. Coveting is a lack of emunah, because when somebody wants something that it doesn't belong to him, that he's not happy, he or she is not happy with her part in life. That doesn't mean that you can't desire something. You desire something, what do you do with the desire? You want something that you don't have? Pray for it. Ask Hashem. But you don't look at someone else that has that object and covet it and desire by coveting, like coveting another man's car, coveting another man's wife, coveting another person's house, coveting another woman's outfit, coveting her living room. No, we don't do that. You want nicer furniture? Ask Hashem for nicer furniture. You want nicer clothes? Ask Hashem for nicer clothes. But we don't covet. It's a 10 commandments. Why isn't it 10 commandments? Because it's a breach of emunah. And emunah is the first commandment. So we see how the 10th commandment is connected to the first commandment. So satisfaction of one's lot in life, current lot in life, that doesn't mean that you want to improve, you want to be smarter, you want to be better, maybe you want a better job. But in the meanwhile, you satisfy what you have. You want something more, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. Ask for it, pray for it. But in the meanwhile, satisfaction with what you have right now, that is the major barometer of our emunah. And what happens when people are satisfied? They're making the statement that they're satisfied with the way the Creator is running the world. And they'll never do anything dishonest. And because why? There's dishonesty. It violates the divine will. Violate divine will. So just the thought for someone with emunah, that's why we say emunah or theft, they can't go together. They're mutually exclusive. They're oil and water. Just the thought of violating divine will to get some possession or some money, it's an anathema to a person that believes in Hashem. It's abhorrent. It's just a thought. A person can't stand it, because especially when we believe that every breath we take comes from Hashem, every heartbeat is from Hashem. So how can we take something that doesn't belong to us? So we clearly see that where there's emunah, there's no theft, and vice versa. Where there's theft, there's no emunah. Okay, so that's the thief statement. The thief, the robber, the swindler, whatever they come, the blackmailer, whoever is violating the prohibition of theft, he's making a clear statement that he or she does not believe that their income comes from above. Why? Maybe they have a general belief in God. Yeah, they know that the world didn't come in by random, by happenstance. They have a belief, got upstairs. He created the world way back when. But now I need to do what I need to do, because he doesn't, the swindler, the robber, doesn't believe that the Almighty can give him what he needs. Says the Almighty is giving him, let's say, a salary of $5,000 a month. And no, he needs double. He needs $10,000 a month. So since the Almighty is giving to him, he takes the law into his own hands and he overrides the Torah. And that's idolatry, because he goes and he right away violates the Almighty's law to get more of what he wants. And in his effort to accumulate more money, that's what's called lust of money. A lust of money, financial lust, just like other kinds of lust. And in fact, Rabbi Nachman says that financial lust for money, it's the worst type of lust. That you can help people get over all types of addictions and all types of things. But when financial lust, people that crave money will do anything, even idolatry and thievery, to satiate their greed. That's one of the difficulties why gambling is such a difficult addiction. Okay, gambling is more, in my experience in counseling people, gambling and greed, financial greed, they're the two worst. They're two worst. You could get people, even a person is not particularly acting proper in marriage, or a person that's on substance. It's not that big a deal to get them off. Not that big a deal. But a person that is addicted to money, addicted to gambling, that is really tough. And Rabbi Nachman says this is the toughest addiction there is, and it's the toughest lust there is, the lust for money. Okay, so we have to keep everyone's money and respect everyone's money and everyone's property in order to maintain a harmonious society. Otherwise, there's going to be tension and bickering all time. So our sages teach that the main reason for the flood in Noah's generation, why did Hashem go? Hashem destroyed the whole world. He just kept Noah and Noah's wife and his 3 sons and their wives, and took 2 by 2 of every animal and 7 by 7 of every kosher animal. Okay. The Gemara in Tractate Sanhedrin, page 108a, says because theft was so rampant that the humans' deeds, they influenced even the plants. They influenced the ground. Theft was like a meter in the ground. That's why the rain had to the flood took the topsoil away to wash it away. It was like putting the whole world in a mikveh. And this is what the Torah says: the end of flesh has come before me, because the world is full of theft, and behold, I will destroy the world. Chapter 6, Genesis, verse 13. So the prohibition of theft has a profound impact on maintaining a harmonious society. So buying or selling or service providing and exchanging goods, this is something we all do all day long, and it's a significant role in our daily lives. So the prohibition of theft, it's designed to protect people's property and people's assets and people's money. So in the absence of such a prohibition, if there would not be a Noahide law that prohibits theft, the world would be total chaos. So let's take a closer look. We're going to break down the Rambam's 3 categories of theft. And we're going to talk separately about monetary theft, and then about human theft with this trafficking, kidnapping, and then commercial theft. Okay, so monetary theft includes anything that is money or worth money, such as real estate or person's possessions, and it entails seizing anything that belongs to someone else. Now, the Gemara also defines several types of theft. I'm translating in English the best way I can. The first is called gezela. Gezela, that's robbery. That's the way you say that robbery in English. And that constitutes what's robbery? It's the forcible acquisition of another person's money or belongings. When the robber, he takes it by force, either by knife point or by gun point, but he takes it by force. Then there's geneva, as opposed to gezela. Geneva is thievery. The thief, he acts in a furtive manner, in stealth manner. When he steals something, the store owner doesn't know, the person, the victim doesn't know, falls into this category. A pickpocket falls into this category of thievery, because he certainly, when he picks somebody's pocket, they don't know. Otherwise, if the guy would turn around and maybe knock him out. Imagine, okay. But so according to Noahide law, robbery and thievery, even though robbery is forceful and thievery is not, it's secret, but it's stealth, they're both forbidden. And robbery is more serious than thievery because it includes a physical threat, threatening a person, and armed force. All right, then there's a third type of monetary theft that's called extortion. You know what extortion is in Hebrew? It's called Hamas. Hamas, interesting. And that's why when I mentioned that the chapter in chapter 6 in Genesis, verse 13, when Hashem says that the whole world is full of theft, it says Kol haaretz bala Hamas, that the world is full of Hamas. And it's amazing that Israel's enemies called Hamas. So maybe we know our enemies, they don't come from nowhere. The Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us that our transgressions create our enemies. So if we know the reason that Israel has enemies is because Israel as a whole, as a nation, is not doing Hashem's will, that the minority of people are keeping Torah, and the majority of people are not. And so that this negative spiritual force, it creates Hezbollah, it creates Hamas, it creates Iran, it creates all types of things. Okay, so Hamas, extortion, in English it's extortion, it's another type of acquisition of someone else's money, property, or possessions by force. So what does the extortionist do? The extortionist, he coerces or he intimidates a person or use psychological pressure to force the victim to sell or give him an object. It also includes stealing a person's free will. Somebody that extorts, a blackmail, this would be extortionist blackmails type of extortion, takes away a person's free will by pressuring an individual to perform an act that he or she doesn't want to do. Okay, the blackmail of the extortionist, they're telling someone to do something that they want to do. There's something else. It's not just monetary blackmail. There's also emotional blackmail, that people take advantage of other people's feelings or other people's weaknesses. Sometimes parents do this. Sometimes abusive parents do this, and they appeal all the 10 commandments says you've got to respect me. Yes, but they forget that 10 commandments all commands them to respect Hashem. Partial observance. So there's not only financial blackmail, there is emotional blackmail. So according to Noahide law, any act of theft or a penny's worth or more is forbidden. Now, if a person is emotionally blackmailed and a psychiatrist is going to testify, or a psychologist, psychotherapist, this person's going to have to pay hundreds, even thousands of dollars to get out of that. Then it means that the emotional blackmail is doing damage to the person. Then the person who's doing emotional blackmail, if this is what the Noahide court, that the court would decide, that person's in big trouble. He's violating theft. Okay, so that's monetary theft. Once again, we have robbery, we have thievery, and we have extortion. These are the three main types of theft. Now we go on to human theft, which is two types of human theft. They're both painful. Human theft, there's kidnap and there's rape. And human trafficking, that's a part of both. Okay, both are heinous violations of Noahide commandments that prohibits theft. People visualize kidnapping as the forced abduction of a person. Some kidnappers are very elegant. They don't force people. And that's so force is not necessarily true. So the kidnapper could lure the victim, whether it's a kidnapper or rapist, and the victim could voluntarily enter the kidnapper or the rapist domain. And where does it start? Once the victim loses free will, that's where the crime starts. Okay, as long as the person is doing something free, even if he's lured into it, okay, you got to be careful. This is the evil inclination, lures people all the time. Temptation. Be careful to avoid temptation. And people, it's like playing a chess game. With a young lady, a man wants to do something. Wait a second, this guy wants to marry you. He doesn't want to marry you, so you better. So he's complimenting you, and you're carried or you're swept off your feet, and he's nice to you, and he takes you to some domain, and then you lose your free will. You're in big trouble. You have to think down the road. It's like playing chess, and we have to teach our children to be very careful be very careful. And they come in. It's crazy times. It's really crazy times. And we think, who's needs to worry about kidnapping or theft? No, we need to know where our children are. Not only that, if Hashem gave us cell phones, and even mom, you're out shopping, pick up the phone every half hour. Dad, I'm here. I'm here at the supermarket. I'm here. I'm that. Okay. Couples, know where you are, know what you're doing, know where each one is. Okay. Don't lose contact. Don't lose contact. The plane that's flying, it's got a vector. It's connected to vector. If it goes from tower to tower, control tower to control tower, the control tower always knows where that plane is. And we should always know where we are. Not to be obsessive, but for every once in a while, it's nice. It's good for marital peace. Hi, sweetheart, how are you? Everything fine? Good. Where are you? I'm here. I'm at work. I'm here. I'm in a meeting. Want that? Where are you? I'm in a supermarket. I'm in the dentist's office. I'm whatever. Okay, when to be home? Hope to be home here. Be in contact. Be in contact, and then it's a lot safer. So just as a person may not purchase stolen goods, a person may not purchase stolen people. So all these people that are taking advantage of human trafficking, sometimes they have human trafficking, like especially now out of the Ukraine, out of poor countries, they take poor people and they put them into semi-servitude. These are middlemen. They sell them out as domestics and they get pittance of wages, and these old middlemen are making a lot of money. And there's a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of human trafficking going on in the world. So you don't want to hire a domestic that is, this middleman comes and gives you a price. No, you hire a person directly, okay, and to pay her directly, and that she's working independent for herself. So we can't purchase booze. We can't utilize, heaven forbid, stolen people. Okay, so there's one situation where we can purchase stolen or captured person in order to rescue him or her from slavery or captivity. This is a tremendous mitzvah of Torah. It's called Pidyon Shvuim. It's rescuing people captivity. In other words, sometimes even paying a ransom. They say blackmail, don't give it to blackmail, but to saving a captive person, paying a ransom, person's been sold into slavery. And if we could pay a ransom and say, this is a big mitzvah. It's a very big mitzvah. All right. So we talk about kidnapping. One thing, it's so painful. I even like to talk about it. It's so appalling. I think rape is the most appalling type of human theft. It's not only forced abduction, but it's a violation. But with us, we talk about holiness. At a person's private domain, and just like now, they're not just talking about women, I'm talking about men, because now with the sick society, they're men being raped. They get raped in the army. They get raped in prison. It goes on, and painful thing. Because not only is so much emotional damage, but your holy of holies. This your holy of holies. Your holy parts, your private parts, they've been violated, and so. And according to Noahide laws, rape is a compound capital crime because it's not only that, it's like emotional murder. So even if the victim is a married woman, then the rapist, in addition to rape, is also we talked about last week about adultery. It's forbidden relations. So it really gets the book thrown at him. And if there's not a Noahide court on earth, there's a Noahide court, very active, and you'll see there's justice. People can't get away. There's justice. Don't hold a stopwatch in the Almighty's face, because there's justice. But if the victim is a man, then the rapist is also guilty of forbidden relations. Spoke last week, sodomy and homosexuality, they're very forbidden relations, go against Torah, and addition to rape. So these are compound violations of Noahide laws. Okay. Another thing, very painful. And in the time when Mashiach comes, the Noahide laws will have full teeth. A pedophile is a rapist in every sense of the word. And not only that, because it's seduction of a minor. if we open up our Gemara and Tractate Yevamot, page 33b, our sages regard pedophilia as the same series as rape. And there's one stat that's even more than rape because it's with a minor that can't protect himself. All right, that's all I'm going to say on that, and that's enough. We'll go on to third, commercial theft. Commercial theft is a very broad category that includes any and all exchanges of goods and services between people. These are the prohibitions that are involved in buying, in selling, in borrowing, or in providing a service for a person. Once again, our lessons don't presume to be a manual of Noahide law or for Noahide courts. Our intent is simply to show how emunah is so vital to fulfill every facet of the Noahide law. Okay, so to strengthen our emunah, we realized how every one of the 10 commandments, every one of the Noahide commandments come from the 10 commandments. They're based on emunah, and that's why it's all emunah oriented. That's why we call our whole series of lessons, it's emunah and the Noahide. Okay, so the Noahide commandments require honest business dealings because any breach of honesty or commercial integrity will surely violate the Noahide prohibition of theft. So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says that a person's true level of emunah is manifest in that person's attitude toward money and that person's integrity in financial dealings. It says that in Torah 23. Therefore, where there is no emunah, there's no theft. And conversely, where there is theft, there's no emunah. And that's where emunah, where there's emunah, there's no theft. And when there's theft, there's no emunah. So let's talk about a few types of transgressions that constitute commercial theft. If a person borrows an object, that's something you borrow something from a neighbor, borrow a lawnmower, you're making a cake, and all of a sudden you see you don't have any eggs left over. So you borrow 2 eggs from a neighbor. Okay, you have to return it agreed upon time. In other words, when you borrow the lawnmower, tell the guy, okay, listen, I'm going to have it back to you by 6 o'clock this evening. Or borrow the 2 eggs tomorrow. I'm going to the supermarket. I'll have the 2 eggs back by tomorrow afternoon. All right. The failure to do so, when you borrow something, have to stipulate when it's getting back. And when you're lending something to someone, stipulate when you want it back. Because if you don't stipulate, you don't get it back, you're going to be bitter. So it's better to be straightforward, say what you want when you want. Okay. So this is just like a loan. A loan, when you borrow a loan, you have to stipulate when it is going to be repaid. Now, suppose a person doesn't have the wherewithal to repay the loan. You don't avoid. Most people, 99% of people, they avoid the lender and they try and hide. That is a violation of Noahide laws. And according to Noahide laws, you have to contact the person that lent you the money and say, listen, I'm in a bind, heaven forbid. And the moment I get it, it's yours. But don't avoid and say, please give me grace. I need another week, another 2 weeks, whatnot. And 9 times out of 10, the lender will give grace. But if the person who's borrowing the money has no intention to repay the loan, then he incurs the spiritual status of a thief. Okay. King David says such a person is evil when he says in Psalm 37, the evil borrow, but they don't repay. Right? Psalm 37. So even if a person borrows a potato or an onion and from a neighbor, he's got to return it on time. And if he's got no intention to return, then he's already called a thief according to Noahide law. Now, paying rent and mortgages and utility and grocery bills, they're all the same as repaying a loan. Okay, this applies to all credit cards as well. And a person that lacks the fund to pay a bill has to appease the creditor. Okay, so the lender, if he doesn't have the money, he's got to tell the creditor, I need grace or need whatever. Okay, if it's a credit card comes down, then fine. Okay, just said the interest piles up. People cry. I hear this all the time. Rabbi, I got this $40,000 credit debt. It was probably started out, it was a $100 debt. But either people live above their means and they keep borrowing and they think it's easy, plastic purchase. Should know how much you have in your bank account and don't exceed it. Don't exceed it. But don't buy into with Amuna. We suggest to people not to buy on credit. We use a credit card only to avoid carrying cash in our wallets. Okay, but people commonly think of credit. No, it's legitimate business, but then they get into big trouble. Don't go there. Okay, another part of commercial law: employers and workers. Some employers, they funny stuff. They think they can, if there's an inflationary economy, by holding on to the employee's money for another day or two, they'll get the 1/100% more interest in the bank. They're violating Noahide law. Pay that worker. You got to pay that worker on time. That is a very important law, and failure to do so is a violation of Torah, which is of course a violation of Noahide law. Okay, so people commonly think that embezzlement in Hebrew is called me'ila, is a large-scale financial crime. You think of embezzlement, something big, such as a law firm or a financial brokerage that embezzles funds from a trust account or their clients' investors. That's not always the case. Okay, there could be, sometimes employers have the obligation to pay their workers in full and on time. But workers, they have an obligation too. They cannot misappropriate time and goods that belong to the employer without the employer's express consent. What does that mean? Okay, if the worker's on a time clock, fine, you got to punch in and punch out. And he can't leave the factory or the workplace without punching out and then punching in again. Because if he does, he goes and he runs around the corner to get something done, to go to the post office or go to the bank. No, that's embezzlement. That's misappropriation. He's embezzling his employer. If he uses a company car suppose the company car is only for company business, and he uses a company car without his employer's consent, or even if he uses a company ballpoint pen for his own purposes without the company's time, and then this what's really common is when the bosses look at people, look on websites and they surf in chat rooms. That is a terrible that's embezzling the boss. That's embezzling the boss, because a person is using the boss's time for his own and getting paid by the boss, and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Okay, so a worker may not engage in personal matters or in personal interests. This includes talking on the phone, surfing on the internet, doing anything personal during work hours, unless the boss agrees. He says, my wife doesn't worry. We just said that if, is it okay if I call home, once every couple hours and just say hello? All right, then the boss will say yes or no or whatnot. And if the boss doesn't agree, then at home, you got to understand your husband or your wife, they've got a job to keep. You don't want them to lose their job. All right, so a worker cannot use company time, company property, or anything that belongs to the employer as time and property in any unauthorized manner. Otherwise, according to Noahide law, it's embezzlement. So that includes everything, once again, from a company car to a ballpoint pen. And employees and service providers, they have rights, but they also have the responsibility to give their employer or client or patient or whatever it is an honest day's work or an honest service. All right, now there's a heavenly time clock. Hey, little story, and it translates to a Hasidic tale. And it tells like a modern joke, you understand. And it sounds funny, but it's very serious. Okay. Some professionals, I can't say which professionals, some professionals that provide hourly services and they bill their clients by the hour, they think that they can get away with padding their bills. And I told one that my first job as a rabbi was rabbi of a prison. As a rabbi of prison, I met all kinds of people behind bars, and people white collar things. There was a doctor behind prison, and he used to pad bills. That's not for time, but pad bills for service he didn't do until he got caught, and he got what they call for a doctor, for a lawyer, it's called disbarred, but he lost his license, and eventually he became so criminal that he got thrown in the brink. But then people they do things. He's lucky. He's lucky because when you get punished in this world, you don't get punished in the next world because he's paid his dues, right? So I'm going to tell you an anecdote about how such professionals, they lack emunah. Here, once again, where there's thievery, there's no emunah. And when there's emunah, there's no thievery. Okay, since either they don't believe in divine justice, or they think they could fool the heavenly court. Now, I don't know what you consider the best type of timepiece, if it's a Rolex or a Mega or Boulevard or Psycho, but nobody can produce a timepiece as accurate as the heavenly time clock. Okay, here's how. Let's call our hero, anti-hero, Stephen Smith. Okay, Stephen Smith was a professional in his early 40s, and he's a rising star in his field. And he had a plush office and Berkeley Square, right near in the West End of London. He drove a Rolls Royce, really up and coming Londoner professional. Well, Stephen's in his office, and one day, this monster of a figure with 1,000 eyes and these dagger-like teeth rushes into Stephen's office, and he goes past the receptionist's desk, and he barges into the inner office where Stephen sits. And Stephen's heart looked at this guy, he looked at the monster and skipped a beat. If you know which angel's got 1,000 eyes, you'll soon find out. He felt a tremendous lump in his throat, Stephen. He could barely breathe. He was so scared, and beads of perspiration, they broke out on his forehead. And he turned white as a ghost. You know, white as a ghost. He's looking in the eyes of the angel of death. This is the angel of death. Teeth of daggers. That's the way the Torah describes him. He's got 1,000 eyes. He's everywhere. Okay. So the angel grunted like a Marine drill sergeant, and he says to Stephen Smith, "You're coming with me." And he says, "What do you mean I'm coming with you?" He says, "I'm only 43 and I'm just about to peak out in my career. Look at this office. Look at everything. I'm doing fine." Angel of Death says, "No way. According to our records, you're 87. You're finished. Your time is up." So Stephen pulled out his wallet and he showed, he says, British passport and his driver's license or whatever IDs he could find. He says, "Look at these documents. Look at these documents. I'm only 43, not a year more." He said, "You call that justice? I call that," they thought they said, the world of truth dug up there in heaven. Isn't it supposed to be honest up there? You mean down there? So the angel of death says, "No, there are no mistakes in the heavenly court." So he said, "Just the same, I'll go double check and be back monetarily. Meanwhile, don't move a muscle." He's right. So he doesn't move a muscle. So the angel of death does this quick squint, a double take, and he goes up to heavenly court and he summons the head archive angel and he asks for verification of Stephen Smith on Berkeley Square in West End, London. Okay, give me the Stephen Smith dossier. Okay, so this was a course that he looked at the dossier and it was accurate down to the tiniest detail. So it took the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is also the angel of death. It took him to go from London to the heavenly archive to speak to the angel to verify the information and to come back. This was 4.41 seconds. This is how fast things go. They could go all over the world. It would take to go around the world. It takes less than 2 seconds. All right, but to go to the world to come, the heavenly court, 4.41 seconds. And the angel of death was back in Stephen's private office, and he says, "This is no mistake. You're 87 and you're coming with me." So again, Stephen protested. He said, "Look, all these personal documents." He says, "That's not the way it's calculated." He says, "In the heavenly court, according to the hours you build your clients, you're 87 years old and you're finished. You're coming with me." See, that's the way, that's heavenly justice. People think they can get away with tricks, but that's heavenly justice. So a God-fearing accountant in Israel, a CPA, really God-fearing, one honest guy, does it's honest business. And he has an expression I use all the time. He says, the heavenly court doesn't use whiteout. You know what whiteout is? We call it in Hebrew tipex. It's in the old days when they had typewriters and this is white paste when you write out a mistake. There's nothing forgotten and there's no mistakes in every court. Okay, so you remember last week we learned about the salami syndrome? Okay, if you're here last week, I talked about it. It applies here also. Person has to be very, very careful because the evil inclination is an angel and very cunning. He knows how to tempt people. And unless a person is on constant vigil against the evil inclination will easily convince them that shady and borderline transactions that they're okay, but they're not. And that's the salami syndrome that we learned about in last week's lesson. Okay, the evil inclination tricks a business person that a little white lie, it's a legitimate sales pitch. Okay, no, but it stretch the truth a little bit, a little white lie. In other words, this house is about to, it's about to be purchased. Did you ever make a quick decision? Nobody's trying to buy that house. Or they sell something misrepresents the house. That, there's a building license. You'd be able to add on 2 rooms to the house, and they didn't even apply for building license yet. They think maybe in the future there might be, but it's not true. It's inaccurate. They gave people this, it's not an outlier. If they apply, they'll get the license. The neighbor applied, he got the license. There's no reason why they don't. Yes, sir, but they do not have a license. You could say the neighbor applied and he got a license, but this house does not yet have a license to add on 2 rooms. All right. So they can't say, but the evil inclination tells the businessman it's okay. You're not stealing from him. You're not taking money out of their pocket. You're not forcing him to buy the house. You tell them, what might be. So once the businessman veers from the truth, okay, then he sees, he said something that wasn't true. A bolt of lightning did not come out of the sky, and a bolt of lightning didn't hit him in the head. Oh, so it must be okay. Because if Hashem didn't like it, maybe he would have hit him with a bolt of lightning. Oh, so now it's easy for him to go and to do something a little bit worse misdeed, okay? So the road from here to outright lie, and from outright lie to outright fraud and misrepresentation, it's a short road. And people get caught in the evil inclinations trap, and they don't realize how they got there. That's what he did to Eve. He said, touch the tree. Nothing to happen to you. She was deathly afraid. No, we're not supposed to. Adam told her not to touch the tree. Hashem told her not to eat from the fruit. But Adam wanted to keep her away from the tree. So the evil inclination knew that. That's why don't be too religious. We do what Hashem tells us to. You don't have to go more than that. Adam told her not to touch a tree. She touched a tree. Nothing happened. And then evil inclination says, touch the fruit. Nothing happened. And see, there we go. And from there was a short, pretty soon the apple's in her mouth. Okay, this is exactly what the evil inclination does to every single business person. So the metaphoric moral of the sad story is that, keep the whole salami whole in its wrapper. Don't take off the first slice. Don't peel the wrapper. Don't even eat the first slice. Now, our sages teach that person, if he does a slight misdeed, then it becomes a permissible act. Once a person does a transgression, and he sees not hit with a bolt of lightning, it must be okay. So then they're fine. First time their conscience bothers them. The second time they get used to it. The third time, this is fine. This is fine. So don't let the evil inclination trick you into taking the first slice of salami. Don't peel the wrapper. Don't do the slightest misdeed, because pretty soon you'll eat the other slice and graduate to the next level of transgression. All right. An individual was once sent to prison for massive fraud and really severe violation of federal financial laws. And the person began as a legitimate broker. And he was even careful about tithing every dollar. This guy was, in the beginning, was so honest. And he would give every dollar he made, 10 cents to charity, 10 cents to crippled church society, 10 cents to this, 10 cents. Yeah, we'd tithe all his money. But in a rough financial time, it's a recession, and he lost several clients, and he started getting scared. So he got this idea that he would, in the meanwhile, they ride over and try to get new clients. And he's saying, what the other brokers are paying 5% on your money, I can double. You'd come to me, 10%. What? 10%? Yeah, I guaranteed him 10%. And so what he was doing, he was luring people into that. And he was taking the money, the new money from new brokers, and then paying as if dividends, 10% dividends to the people he lured in. And there wasn't any fraud behind it. This is the classic Ponzi scheme where there's nothing behind. You take money from new people and give it to the old people, show them the dividends are. But then what happens is a Ponzi scheme, it burns itself out, because pretty soon, so what happened? The Ponzi, he gives a percentage to the new brokers, but most of it comes in his pocket. All right. And but then what happens is pretty soon he's not having any money. It's cash flow, because he's finding new meat. He can't find new meat. He can't find new investors. So if he can't find new investors, he doesn't have cash in his hand. Doesn't have cash in his hand, he can't pay those fast dividends anymore. Now he pays those fast dividends. And And people say, oh, you promised me 10%. It's not coming in anymore. And they cash in. So in the beginning, he has enough to give him the cash, all right, to cash him out. But in the end, the floor crashes and people want to all cash in at once and he doesn't have the money. Okay. And then he can't go bankruptcy. Go bankruptcy, they see that maybe he's got, he took billions of dollars of money and he's got maybe $1 million in assets. And the court does very quickly find out this a Ponzi scheme. The guy is going to jail. It all started out with the first white lie. Okay. If the evil inclination is a salami, then don't eat the first slice, not the first white lie. Okay. Now let's talk about, that's general. Let's talk about practical observance. How we can practically observe the Noahide prohibition of faith. So now that we understand the seriousness and the intricacy of financial laws and the laws of theft, let's look at a few main details that affect the practical observance of this particular command, which is the fifth Noahide commandment. So as we say in the previous lessons, King David tells us in Psalm 34, depart from evil and do good. So we're going to give some major don'ts and then some do's. Okay, we have 10 don'ts, things that you don't want to do. Okay, and this, one of the things you do want to do is to strengthen Amunah. And what you don't want to do is to go anywhere near thievery. Okay, number one, do not touch a cent that doesn't belong to you. Okay. Number two, do not give or take a loan without signing a promissory note that specifies how and when the loan will be returned. Because when there's no note and there's no written promise, then people deny it and there's arguments and the law is going to be transgressed either by the creditor or by the lender. So preferably, according to Jewish law, 2 witnesses have to sign a promissory note. And this is not required in Noahide law, but I suggest it. When Noahide's asked me about loaning money, okay, get 2 witnesses. So the guy can't say you forged it or whatnot. No, listen, you lend somebody $1,000, if it's in the family, even if it's in the family, even if it's a family member, a brother-in-law, a first cousin, okay, fine, we do it fine. But let's see, okay, when are you going to pay me back? Okay, another 12 months. All right, today is the 14th of June, 2024. Comes back $1,000 hard cash. Boom, signed. The creditor signs it. The lender, person is making a loan, sign it. Then the two witnesses, John Smith and Bill Doe, they signed it and got the note. And it should preferably have 2 copies, 1 copy for the creditor and 1 copy for the lender. All right. So that's a good practice. It's a recommended practice and it keeps people away from trouble. Okay. Do not borrow any money or object without knowing how you return it. In other words, if a person doesn't have money and if he knows, okay, listen, I'm going to get my salary in another week. All right. When I get my salary, I'll repay you. But if he buys money and doesn't know where it's going to come from, then 9 times out of 10, people are delinquent. Have to know how you're going to repay that loan. Okay, if a person who wants charity should not say that he's seeking a loan, because that's lying, that's misrepresentation, that's fraud. If a person says, looking for charity, He says, I need money and I don't intend to repay it. Would you like to give charity? And then you could knock it off your tithe because this is charity, right? And number 5, do not borrow, use, or touch another person's private domain or possessions without the owner's express consent. Number 6, when making any type of sale, do not misrepresent the article that's being sold in any way. Number 7, at work, don't use company time or equipment for personal use without the employer's express consent. The employer agrees, okay, that's fine, hunky-dory. 8, under no circumstances, do not buy stolen goods. And it's only firsthand, even secondhand. Okay, that they're not buying from the thief, but buying from someone who bought from the thief. Okay, a lot of people do that because there's a question here in Israel. There were bus tickets that were going around in the ultra-religious areas. We have less cars than the non-religious areas. I mean, a lot more children. And so a couple of con artists, they started cheating the bus company and they found out how to get bus tickets. They started selling discounted bus tickets. And people at Bini thought it was legitimate, but it was way below the market price. So one person went to Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. He's one of the biggest religious lawgivers today in Bnei Brak. And it's under no circumstances. It's stolen property. It's being stolen from the bus. The bus company does not give 30% discounts. It just doesn't, not 40% discounts. So these are really discounted. You have to be careful when something is so inexpensive, and have to be careful that maybe it might be stolen. So we have to do our effort not to stay away, keep our hands away from stolen goods. Number 9, do not coerce other people into doing anything that negates their own will. If they don't want to sell, can't convince them. If they don't want to do something, you can't force them. Number 10, don't partake of fruits, vegetables, or anything grown or found on private property without the owner's consent, because that's also stealing. Somebody goes into a person's apple patch and a person's apple orchard, picks apples, and you can't do that. You can't do that. That's violating the owner of the orchard. He sells those apples, and if he doesn't sell those apples, he gives it to who wins, and they're not ours to take. That's 10 major don'ts. That covers in a general spectrum the financial laws, the don'ts. The do's. Number 1, be very careful in any exchange of money to count your change and verify that you haven't been overcharged or undercharged. How many times you come home from the supermarket and you see that the cashier accidentally, we say accidentally, gave you too much money or too little money, and they have to right away confront them about that. Because if a cashier, that's number 2, if a cashier has made a mistake and given too much change, we have to return it. And it's given too little change, we have to claim it. Say it gave you a $20 bill, and this is what you gave me. You gave me $2 back, and I should have had $2.50 back. Okay, it's even at 10 cents. After shopping, it's a good idea to check your itemized receipt and assure that you haven't been charged for something that you didn't purchase, and be sure that you didn't take home, there was something in your basket cart that you didn't pay for, because something, even we say on Yom Kippur, Hashem, help me, I shouldn't even touch something accidentally. And of course, the person didn't intentionally steal, but even if it's not intentional, it's still accidental violation. We don't want to violate the Noahide laws even in an accidental manner. This is very serious. Okay, so we have to, number 5, return loans and pay bills on time. And this, of course, includes paying workers' salary on time and in full. And a worker can also mean someone doing a job for us. You have a plumber in the house, person can say, oh, come back tomorrow, I'll pay you, come back here. Then I have to pay them on time, right there. Okay, if a person lacks the funds to repay a loan or repay a bill or return a loan, then he or she must contact the creditor and request an extension. Okay, 7 is the golden rule. Treat other people's money, property, and possessions as you would want them to treat yours. Do unto others, you want them to do it for you. That's loving your neighbors yourself. And it's really the Noahide laws of the prohibition of theft. It's all based on respecting other people and loving our neighbor. So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov warns that if thievery or any type of dishonesty taints a person's actions, then their prayers are not going to be heard. If somebody they've been praying for something and haven't heard, then they'll double check themselves if they're not guilty, even of some kind of white lie or thievery. On the other hand, Rabbi Nachman promises that anyone who despises thievery will rise to grandeur. It says that in Sefer Midas. These are 2 strong reasons to observe the Noahide prohibition of theft to our very best abilities. So, B'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should help us do honest dealings and this invoke all types of divine blessings for all of us on earth.